Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into this, I need you to really listen closely because what I'm about to share completely changes the narrative that's been going around. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and honestly, some of it is just flat out wrong. So today, we're clearing that up. And not just that, we also need to talk about the fire that happened back in January at the Airbnb retreat Joseph and Kendra have in Siloam Springs, because the full story there is not what people think either. Now, let's start with the biggest rumor going around right now. There have been claims that Kendra was selling off property, taking control of Joseph's businesses, and trying to raise money to pay his bail. That is not true. Let me be very clear about that. Kendra did not pay his bail, and none of her money was used for it. Instead, Jim Bob flew to Florida just days before Joseph arrived, and he personally put down a $60,000 bond. So no, Kendra was not selling anything to get her husband out. But here's the part people need to understand. Nothing in that family comes without a price. Joseph will have to pay that money back, and if the family covers any legal expenses, that's another debt added on top. So while it may look like help, it's really just another layer of control, and that puts Kendra in an even more difficult position, because the more she relies on them, the harder it becomes to ever step away. Which is exactly why this matters, because I truly think Kendra deserves to know how she's actually being viewed and talked about behind the scenes. Now, I'm not here to say anyone is perfect. I'm not here to promote anyone's beliefs or lifestyle. What I care about is truth, transparency, and giving a voice to people who may feel trapped in systems where they don't have one. Over the past few days, I've spoken to a lot of people, and one thing became very clear. When Joseph was arrested, Kendra was not their priority, not even close. Jim Bob and Joseph were angry, yes, but not about what happened. They were angry about what got exposed and who it was exposed to. Their focus wasn't accountability, it was control. It was stopping information, managing the narrative, and trying to influence the situation. And in all of that, Kendra didn't matter. In fact, at one point, they were ready to completely cut her off. They were willing to send her back to her family, saying she was no longer their responsibility. Think about that for a second. Your husband is gone, your father-in-law turns around and says, "She's your problem now." No financial support, no protection, nothing. That's not just neglect, that's intentional. And when that didn't work, when the pressure tactics failed, the situation escalated. Kendra ended up in trouble herself. There were issues involving the state and their children. And suddenly, now they needed her. The same person they were ready to discard became essential. And that shift says everything, because now she's not being treated like a partner. She's being treated like leverage, like something to manage, control, and keep quiet. And let's be real here. Kendra is not powerless. She can think for herself. She was not raised to blindly follow anyone. She was raised to understand right from wrong, to value fairness, and to stand for what's just. And that's what makes this even more serious, because right now, everything is about keeping her aligned, keeping her silent, and making sure nothing comes out, especially when it comes to the kids. In Florida, she can testify. There's nothing legally stopping her.
But in situations like this, the pressure isn't always legal. It's emotional, it's financial, it's psychological, and that's what keeps people stuck. Now, when it comes to the children, this is where things become even more concerning. Because the issue isn't just what happened, it's whether the environment is safe moving forward. If someone is minimizing serious behavior, if they're denying reality, if they're protecting the person instead of the children, that creates a dangerous situation. And according to people who actually know Joseph, they didn't hesitate when asked. If he could do it to one person, he could do it to anyone. That's what was said. And that's why separation matters, because kids need space. They need clarity. They need time and support to process things safely. Now, let's shift to another part of this story that hasn't been fully explained: the fire. On January 1st, 2026, there was an explosion at their rental property. Not a small incident, a full-on explosion caused by a propane tank connected to an outdoor fire setup. The cottage caught fire, and it was severely damaged. Joseph and Kendra weren't even there. Guests were. Emergency services had to respond. Neighbors stepped in to help, and those renters lost their stay, their experience, everything. Now, officially, it was ruled accidental, a leak in the propane tank. But here's where things get questionable. That property, even after the damage, was still being listed, still being marketed, without clearly telling people what happened. And that raises a serious concern about transparency. Because if you're booking a place to stay, don't you deserve to know its history? Especially something like that. Now, on top of that, there were insurance payouts involved, money for repairs, money for mitigation, and yet there are conversations showing confusion about where that money even went. Not small amounts, real money, and somehow it couldn't be found. Which brings up an important question: where did it go? Because at the same time, there are signs of overspending, poor financial management, and a lifestyle that was never adjusted, even after the income changed. And that's another layer to this story, because behind everything, there's a pattern: control, secrecy,
Financial dependency, and lack of transparency. Even with the Airbnb, pricing was being increased, costs weren't clearly understood, and decisions were being made without full awareness. And now, they're trying to continue operations while quietly removing their names from things, changing listings, and avoiding attention. But the reality is, people notice, and people ask questions. Now, here's something else to think about. There are also reports that the property had multiple cameras installed. And if that's true, that's another layer of concern for guests. Because privacy matters, and people deserve to know exactly what they're walking into. At the end of the day, this situation is bigger than just one incident. It's about patterns of behavior. It's about how people are treated when things go wrong. And it's about who is protected and who is not. And right now, Kendra is at the center of all of it. So, Kendra, if you ever hear this, just remember this one thing: your value is not defined by how someone else treats you. You are not disposable, and you are not alone. All right, guys, I'm going to stop here because this is already a lot to take in. But there's more coming. In the next video, we're going to talk about how recent actions may have impacted their chances of getting the kids back and what's been happening behind the scenes. Make sure you're subscribed because you don't want to miss that. And if you made it this far, drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think about all of this. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.